Good evening. It's News View. I'm Lee Sullivan. Thank you for allowing me in. I have that great American libertarian, Fox News View contributor, award-winning author, columnist, humorist, Ron Hart. Been down here to the beach, where all great Americans should be on the 4th of July. So, how was it?
Terrific. We celebrated freedom until late in the night. You know, nothing better than fireworks and alcohol during a drought. So,
yeah, really.
What could go wrong there? But they had a tremendous fireworks display at Rosemary Beach. It was fantastic. Makes you glad to be alive.
Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm. So you tell me Harvard had a study about patriotism and firecrackers?
Yeah, Harvard did a study that says that kids on the 4th of July, if they hear the speeches and they're remembered about freedom and what the country went through, and of course they like fireworks too, tends to make kids Republican. So one day a year. Who knew? But the 275 days a year that they go to public schools tries to counterbalance that a little bit.
Socialist schools.
Exactly. Government-run schools.
Yes, yeah, socialist schools. Making good Americans little socialist, communist, fascist.
Yeah, they see it the way the teachers union, unfortunately. There are a lot of good teachers out there, but unfortunately the system of a public school system is really drifting left, and it continues to do so.
Yeah. Because
they're unionized, and they're trying to promote the kumbaya, we are the world, we should be in this together type of format. Most people don't like that.
I certainly don't like it.
No, nor do me.
Speaking of things I don't like. Speaking of...
Yeah, I'm afraid about this.
I know a litany of things that I don't like.
Well, we disagree on a few things.
A few things we do.
Yeah.
And one of them is the opportunity for homosexuals, gays, as you refer to them. Mm-hmm. Homosexuals is okay. Yeah. New York, the governor's blind. He signed it anyway. And in your column, you said that it was an issue of states' rights.
Right. Well, we're celebrating freedom, right, July 4th. And the government's limited role should be that of many things, this included, because, you know, marriage in general is a local issue. You get your marriage license at a courthouse. You get the state kind of handles these type of situations. It's really a religious ceremony. I'm kind of more on board with Ron Paul, who says this is a religious endeavor. If you look at the derivation of marriage, it's not a government institution, as it more is a religious institution.
I agree.
And the religions differ in many, many ways. But the funny thing about Obama being happy about the gay rights issue, he had 2 years of the Senate and the House to do whatever he wanted to do. And this clearly was not his priority, the gay marriage issue. Then when New York passes it, you know, the son of a white mother and an African-American father who grew up in the 60s all of a sudden becomes a states' rights person over this one. It shows you how politically expedient some people can be. But, you know, when they found it happened late into the night last weekend, and the gays in New York City were dancing, disco dancing, jumping in the street, and when they heard the news, they really got excited. Really, some of them. They love it. I mean, now, you know, marriage in New York will be as common as a Donald Trump marriage.
Well, I think the last statistics that I looked at was that 60%, I think maybe a little bit more than that, of regular marriages end in divorce. Mm-hmm. How do you think the homosexuals, I mean, do you think their fidelity level will be better, or will it be Lee and Ron, and I say, Ron, yeah. What is that new cologne you're wearing?
Well, it's a big win for divorce lawyers no matter what happens. The lawyers tend to win everything. No, my view is, look, it's a symbolic thing. And if the religious right wants to persecute gays and let this be their main issue, they're wasting their currency. Because you can't have minimal government, I'm a Republican. I believe too much regulation, minimal government, minimal intrusion, except for this little area, which we're going to actively police. You can't police human nature.
There's a difference between where your moral stance is and where your legal stance is.
It's a moral, it's a church issue.
And you know, and I don't care. I mean, I don't think it's right, but, you know, let them have some wedded bliss is what I say.
Exactly. If the religious right, if the goal of the religious right is to slow down gay sex, what better way than to let them get married? Right. That'll bring it to a screeching halt pretty quick. But you know, it's funny how this only becomes a major issue in even number of election years.
But in a world of economic warfare, chaos, you know, we're worried about what Bill and Henry are doing to each other.
A couple of retired gym teachers want to have a merged checking account and combine their ceramic cat collection.
Right.
And it's not our worries.
Right.
Okay. Who's that hurting?
Right.
It's not hurting anybody. So the truth is, as I said in the column, it's a symbolic win for the gays, which is fine. I mean, it's not going to be a huge deal. I mean, the first gay marriage of lesbians happened in Massachusetts when they passed. That was one of the first states to pass gay marriage, and these lesbians got married, and they shortly thereafter, it was very symbolic, shortly thereafter got divorced. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, they cited irreconcilable similarities when they got divorced. So, look, just let it go. As I say in the column, don't fret this thing. Just let it go. If you're a Tea Party person, you're about individual freedoms, minimal government intrusion. This is one area that you got to be intellectually honest about. Because where's the harm? I mean, somebody harms the family. I don't know if it hurts the family.
You make a great point. I guess my biggest angst is that it takes up so much oxygen in a room where we can ill afford to donate that much oxygen to that issue.
Well, even George Bush, 43, was for civil unions. So civil unions is kind of a business arrangement where couples get together on a financial basis. So work for Bill and Hillary Clinton. Why not work for the rest of the country?
Well, it's just the civil part of marriage is just a tax.
Right.
It's just a way for the government to collect money.
Well, the only advantage is one partner dies, the other partner gets their net worth if it's above $3.5–4 million tax free. That's one. And they also have visitation rights in the hospital. You can send durable powers of attorney to whomever you want to. I mean, that's a bit of a red herring. So I would imagine that, and my view is generically, the less the federal government does, the better. And the fact that the Republicans spent a lot of their currency right after winning a landslide election to implement DOMA and all these other type of things, we got much bigger problems. And it's just a tough situation. The weird thing is that Iowa passed gay marriage, and my guess is because there's really nothing to do in Iowa. They were just looking for something to do
with the corn cobs. I think.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty sure. You're awful. I'm pretty sure ethanol subsidies were somehow involved in that passage in Iowa, but
a colonel here and a colonel there. Ron Hart, we'll be right back. Some of these televangelists, man, they need to be in the bin. Welcome back. It's News View. I'm visiting with Ron Hart, Fox News View contributor. We are talking about what Ron refers to as gay marriage, what I refer to politely as homosexual marriage, there's some throw-offs on this that do strike a little closer to home, and that is there seems to be a penchant or a leaning, at least for some denominations, that if the minister will not perform the religious ceremony, then they're in the cooker.
Right. And I think you're coming my way on it. Just people at home know we went antiquing during the break, and we were able to work out some issues downtown. You and me.
We worked out no issues at all on this.
We bought a nice armoire. I thought that was sweet. You're right, though.
I'll take you back to the corn cob here in a minute.
Get that out of my mind. No. The real issue, and you hit upon it, is this is a religious endeavor, right? So the gay issue has split a lot of churches up. I mean, I say in the column, if the Baptists could recognize gay marriage, maybe at some point one Baptist could recognize another Baptist in the liquor store. Who knows where it could go with this whole thing. But
that was totally cool.
Exactly. But the Episcopal Church, I know, the liberal part of the Episcopal Church likes gay marriage. The other part doesn't. It breaks the church up. I mean, some Episcopal priests seem to think, you can hate the sin but love the shoes.
Right.
You can have a gay marriage situation. But for a church, I think it's supposed to be forgiving and inclusive and understanding. Some of them draw a pretty severe line.
Well, one of the premises that you make consistently, and as much as I hate to say this, I tend to agree with you. People don't choose that lifestyle. That's just the way they are.
Right. I mean, I've seen it both in my growing up in a small town high school, and there was a guy, flamboyantly gay, his whole life. His wrist did the thing, he played with, had all the characteristics. He was born gay. I'm just convinced that the more we know about science, the more we know about observations of empirical data that you see just in life, I just think people are born that way. Life's too hard to choose that lifestyle. It's too hard to be gay. So, like you say, 5% of the population is probably gay. To persecute them over your moral values, that somehow you're not wired that way, and deny them what they view as happiness, I think it's just a wasted energy in America, and we've got a lot bigger problems.
Here, though, talk to me about this. Every time we isolate a segment of society and refer to them, if I may say this, on television as a minority, they receive special privileges,
right.
Not the same privileges, but
right.
Special privileges.
And that should not be the case here. I mean, they're looking for equal rights in this case. They're not looking for special rights. Now, if they go to the affirmative action route down the road because of years of being allowed to marry and persecution, that's wrong.
Reparations.
Reparations from what they did in the past. That's ridiculous. Which is the case, of course, in civil rights, which has gone way too far. This pendulum swing in society, both the stock market, there's overvaluation, there's undervaluations, there are points of correction. And unions were needed probably in the 1920s because labor laws were awful. Now unions have swung way to the right with egregiously demanding and not needed. But same thing with gay issues or other issues. There's a pendulum that needs to be calibrated toward the middle, of which I think we're getting there in this case. But the people that have to be intellectually honest with themselves, especially it seems like it's the Republican and supposedly minimal government people, you can't have it both ways. You can't say minimal government. And the same thing, unfortunately, this is another hot button issue with choice, pro-choice, pro-life. I mean, that's a moral issue. But if you're minimal government, minimal intrusion, don't tell me what to do, but we're going to tell you about who you can marry. We're going to tell you what a woman can do with her body. Two illogical disconnects. I know it's a moral issue.
No. In most cases, now before science takes over all of it,
right.
It takes two people to conceive.
Right.
All right.
Right.
So the woman carries the child.
Right.
So by that means the father has no say at all.
So when it comes to paying for the kid.
Yeah. Well, pay for it, right? But I mean, when it comes time to terminate the baby's life, that's the woman's choice.
Right. Right. But it would be messy, otherwise, each person's responsible for themselves in many ways, and I think that's the only way you can deal with a situation like that, ultimately. I don't see any other way without complicating a very long legal
Lee's
process.
America has the answer to all of those things. Ron Hart, we'll be right back. Welcome back. Newsview visiting with Ron Hart. Okay. Affirmative action. I'm sure... I got to be sure, certainly sometime, once upon a time, there was some validity to that, but we're way past that.
Right. What people don't understand about affirmative action is if you're a proponent of it, you have to understand that the kids today that are the bad side of affirmative action, I mean the kid with the 1300 SAT that doesn't get into Harvard, or where an affirmative action kid gets in with 1100 SAT,
right.
For every kid that you let in, one didn't get in.
Right.
And it's because it's a white kid who grew up in a trailer park who worked really hard to make a good SAT score and to get into Harvard. If Michael Jordan's kid made 1100 and got in because he's African American, that's patently unfair. He had Michael Jordan's kid had all the privileges of growing up. Not that should be a detriment to the school, but affirmative action really hurts the African American community, and here's why. If you have 100 doctors that are black, and they're MDs, et cetera, 20 of them, certainly the ones in the 70s and 60s and 70s, made the same scores, maybe more than the white doctors to become a doctor. They're qualified as a doctor. The 80 that didn't, that sometimes made 20, 30% less on their test scores, become doctors. But I don't know which one it is.
Right.
When I go in the doctor's office, I don't know if how much affirmative action got that doctor to that point. And this is my body, this is my kids, this is my family. I take that very seriously. This is not something to grade on a curve when you're talking about, a doctor.
Right.
So the African Americans have to understand that the hard-working ones that would have gotten there anyway are damaged by the notion of affirmative action. And it's not a 5% discount. I mean, the University of Michigan Law School study case, the kids were getting in law school with 25, 30% lower grades, not 1, 2. They weren't rounding up a little bit. These are pretty magnificent differences in test scores that they're getting in these schools. So, and do you want that world? I mean, Clearly, Obama is a product of affirmative action. He would never gotten into Columbia. He never would have gotten into Harvard on his normal test scores. He's refused to show his test scores because, supposedly he's the smartest president we've ever had. We know what all the major presidents' test scores are. Bush, Clinton, Gore, and Kerry, when they ran, also revealed their test scores, 1250-ish type of SATs. So this most brilliant intellectual mind of our time, per the Democrats, won't say what his scores were, nor will his wife, Michelle. What did she get in Princeton with? And what kid didn't get in because she was there? That's the question. It's a zero-sum game with admissions. They have so many spots.
Well, that can reasonably create hate and discontent.
Right. Among a generation of kids that are probably 5 generations removed from any form of slavery.
Exactly.
That are 2 or 3 generations removed from any sort of civil rights, egregious civil rights.
And the same thing comes to the same thing comes to the employment profile.
Right. Right.
Who gets hired?
Right. Yeah, you're exactly right. And the congressman from Oklahoma, who's a terrific African American congressman from Oklahoma, his name's skipping me right now. Yeah, J.C. Watts had a great line one time. His dad was a preacher, he had rental houses and worked real hard. He played at Oklahoma. His dad used to tell him, son, the only helping hand you can count on is the one at the end of your arm. He says, don't count on this thing. And it makes the liberals very mad when Clarence Thomas and J.C. Watts and the ones that are successful say, I don't want affirmative action. And those are the ones to be applauded.
Well, and you're right. It does diminish whatever group it is that receives that kind of treatment.
Right.
It doesn't help them. It doesn't move them up. It moves them down.
Yeah. And if you get to an elevated point in your life, you like to look back on it and be proud of it, and not say it was great on the curb. I was handed this thing, and
Really?
You want to compete. I mean, your nature should be such that you'd want to compete, and it's a problem. I mean, they should have school choice. An African American kid shouldn't be bused to a school against their choice. They should have a charter school, have an option to go to a charter school, and it really is environment and the mindset. Because in an inner city school, I lived both in Memphis and Atlanta at one time. In inner city school, if you're a smart African American kid, you get made fun of, called an Uncle Tom. You're called names. It's tough to be smart. So the culture is against the intellectual African American kid doing well in school. It's a cultural thing.
Ron Hart, we'll be right back. Welcome back, Newsview, visiting with Ron Hart. We have been talking about affirmative action and how that all works out or doesn't work out. I want to close it out a little bit this evening by talking about something that is on all our hearts and minds, and that is the war in Afghanistan. Did you watch Obama's Afghanistan?
Yeah, I saw it. It's amazing. It sounds like we inherited when we went to Afghanistan a corrupt, backwards government, and now we have a democratically elected corrupt, backwards government. So that's progress, right? He's been disingenuous on the whole war thing. If I contemplated voting for him, and I did at one point, and I didn't, it was because he wouldn't get us out of these wars. But he didn't do it. He doubled up on these wars, and he's done a worse job than I think anyone could imagine on the wars, including the left. The left's been kind of quiet on it, but they got to be disappointed that he's almost tripled the troop levels.
He lied to them.
He lied to them. And bin Laden was in Pakistan. And Afghanistan's a crazy country. You'd think with all the pot and opium they grew there, they'd be more mellow. Right. They'd be more laid back. But this is a weird place to be.
Well, there won't be a decent cave left to live in when we get through with them.
It's like walking through the Old Testament. It's just a huge mistake. I think he's politically, I call it that speech Operation Re-election. You notice, he pulls down 20,000 troops out of Afghanistan, bring them home, but as an asterisk, they got a 2-year layover in Libya or something on the way home. I just don't understand why a pacifist president like this somehow gets in the White House and gets the power of the military and all of a sudden becomes Rambo.
Well, I'm going to tell the dipwad one thing, okay? He needs to look back at history, all right? So when he's out, like we were in Vietnam, it's over. Whoever it was that he perceives that we're fighting wins.
Right, exactly.
Okay? They win because we leave.
Yeah, it's like a hotel room. You just get the heck out of there, and just hey, keep our deposit. We messed up a few things here, but we get out and save our lives.
And then when you look in the rearview mirror and you look at the waste of humanity, the sacrifice of men and women that served over there for realistically nothing.
Right.
Then you think, did we not learn any little bit from Vietnam? Nothing?
Nothing at all. I mean, certainly the graveyard of empires is what Afghanistan's been called, from Genghis Khan all the way to the Russians, as we remember in Charlie Wilson's War. How the terrain's tough, the people are just gritty and don't care. You know, how do you damage them?
Right.
I mean, how do you hurt people like that? They're living in caves, like you say. So, and so our troops go over there. We create more enemies than we indoctrinate our way. I think we cause people to dislike us more. Think about the Civil War. Only 3% of the Civil War, Southern Civil War fighters owned slaves. 3%. The rest of the boys were fighting because people were on their land. The North came on their land. There's something very provincial in human nature about defending your land. No matter ideology, no matter what that is, if people are on your land that aren't you, you bow up.
A lesson to be remembered. Remember, those are my views. What are yours?